Well, it's not 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. It's 4:27, but we have a family event at 7, and so I'm coming a little early. So you probably won't catch me live, but you'll catch me on a replay, and that's just fine with me. Today, before we get started about our topic, which is um, how to deal with a narcissistic person that's in your life and in the life of your children, I just wanted to let you know that uh, for the month of February, just for the month of February, I am going to open up my Saboteur to Strategic. And that is just a little workshop that talks about how we sabotage ourselves as parents and how we sabotage our children without even really realizing it. And then what can we do to become more strategic in the way that we deal with ourselves and the way that we deal with our kids. And so that is open for free just for the month of February. So if you're interested, I'm going to put the link in the comments below. And so if you want to go in and register and give it a look, see, go ahead and do that. I think it's a great topic, and it helps you start really thinking about the things that you can do in your family, because all of us, every one of us, at some point sabotages ourselves and our kids, our spouse, all of that stuff, and we don't mean to. It's just a lack of planning, most part, and just that gut, that gut check reaction. And so it's a short one. It's only about an hour long, and it's there for you. Okay, so now I want to talk about the podcast this week is with Angela Myer, and she has her own podcast, and we talked about that narcissistic person that can be in your life. So maybe it's a former spouse, maybe it's a current spouse, maybe it's a parent or a sibling, an adult sibling. Maybe it's someone you're dealing with at work or in the neighborhood or even at church, They just kind of pop up everywhere. I did some research and I found that even a few years ago, they've estimated that 5% of the population in the United States is narcissistic, but they also noted that that percentage is on the rise. And so it's happening more and more and more. And one of the things that's interesting is that people aren't born narcissistic. It's because of things that have happened to them. And so we know that sometimes we'll get kids from like the Iron Curtain type countries, the Russian type countries that people will adopt out of the orphanages in there. And those kids are not treated well in the orphanages. They're just kind of left to their own, very little human touch. Um, and that there's a big problem with some of those kids coming over, and they are narcissistic to the point of being dangerous sometimes. Not all kids, it's not all kids. I'm not saying don't adopt out of there. I am saying be aware of how they come in, because you're going to have to work with them and help them overcome, the things uh, that they've been through. But it happens even within our own families. So there's some kind of trauma, and sometimes it's our fault, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's maybe a parent dying or a sibling dying, or there's a huge car crash that affects them. Um, Maybe something went wrong and they've had an incarcerated parent, or someone who's been involved in some type of violence of that sort, and they've been exposed to it. Kids who are exposed to domestic violence within the home have a greater incident of becoming a narcissist as they get older. And it's a protection thing. They need to have control over everything. It's one of the, I guess there are like 10 um, personality disorders, and narcissism is one of them, as is OCD, right? And so we tend to be more accepting of an OCD personality, because even though it might be difficult, at least you get a clean house, right? But with the narcissist, people can get hurt. They can get hurt physically, emotionally, financially, um, even spiritually. It just wears them down and it sucks the life right out of you. But what Angela Meyer has coming in is she's talking about if we look at these people with the idea that this is a result of something that happened when they were usually very young, and they are reacting to that. They haven't been able to get beyond it, and they felt completely out of control in their life. Then that's something that they are needing. Now, can you get help for narcissism? You can, but it's a lot of work, and they have to really want to do better with it. So, she said that she's actually gone and done presentations, and people have come up to her afterwards and said, "Oh my gosh, you talked about what a narcissist looks like, and you hit me to a T." And so, they will go on to get some help and support and try to make a change in their life. Living with a narcissist, or having to work with one, or deal with that neighbor, that's down the street. I can remember when we had one. Gosh, this was back in the 90s, early 2000s. And this guy just had to be in charge of everything on the cul-de-sac, and he would call the authorities on any, oh, they're doing something in their backyard. I don't think it's got a permit, or whatever. And but he was struggling with his own loss and his life. And so we just kind of, okay, that's just who he is, and we're going to manage through it. And uh, we still did some things to show kindness and taught the kids not to be mean or cruel. But and he became surprised, I guess, at some points too, and would surprise us by doing something kind once in a while to our family. But then the next day, it'd be back to same old guy. So that's just life, and but if you know what you're dealing with, that you know who you are inside, you know uh, where you look at people, and make sure that you are protecting yourself, but at the same time, um, being compassionate. So it's almost like a protective compassion with these guys, and that gals. There's gals there too, but then also really pay attention with your own little kids, and make sure that they are um, that you are aware of any trauma that may be going on. It could be constant bullying at school, or um, it could be the death of a dog. I mean, there's you never know what's going to hit a child in that way. And so you want to watch your kids carefully and make sure, are they are they showing kindness to other people? Are they showing kindness just because they want to get something out of it? Or are they showing kindness to be kind, right? Because there's a big difference. And how much control do they need to have over their lives and over the situation? If you think that your child is showing some of these signs, and we talk about them in the podcast, but if you think your child really, the earliest that you can get help for both yourself and your child and the family, so that you can support them in a way that's going to help them move along and be able to develop more normally, and to have greater success socially and emotionally, um, that the earlier you can get them the help, the better that's going to be. What I loved about Angela Meyer was that she didn't come forward with like this attitude of condemnation, and that someone is horrible. I mean, they're hard to deal with, no doubt about it. Someone who's narcissistic is hard to deal with, but it doesn't mean that they're not trying. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that they're a horrible person. It does mean that they need help. And so I guess the question then becomes, are you going to be part of the help, or are you going to be part of the problem? And it depends sometimes on, if you have someone that's really causing a problem for you at work, maybe another job is going to be in line for you, right? Or maybe a transfer to a different department if it's become too much, right? A neighbor you can avoid, um, or you can move if you need to, right? A spouse, it gets a little harder because a divorce, you know, there's there's ramifications from that. But maybe a divorce is the right thing for what needs to happen. Other times, maybe they're willing and wanting to do a little better. They don't know how. Let's get help. Let's learn how, and then learn how to take care of yourself and your kids through it all. The chances of a child who grows up with a narcissistic parent um, is higher, for them to be narcissistic themselves, because that's what they see, that's what they're learning, right? And so you want to make sure that you're watching for that. And then too, it was funny because when I was talking to Angela and I said, "Oh, a narcissist will never admit they're a narcissist," and she said, "Oh yeah, sometimes they will, sometimes they will." And I think if you've got someone who's admitting it and looking for that help, you don't want to give up on that person. That's just me talking, um, and my commitment to family. But um, I think we need to take those thoughts and consequences very seriously. Um, because think of the lives that you can change. But sometimes if they're not open to it, they don't want help, they're just causing disaster, then you're going to have to make another decision there too. And so I'm just really hopeful, I guess, that as you listen to the podcast, that you will learn something, that you will see uh, different decisions that you can make that need to be made. You can be on the lookout for people in your life that maybe they're narcissistic, or maybe they're just having a bad day or a bad week or a bad year. You know, I know people who have lost a spouse. I've had students who've lost a parent, and they become super protective of themselves and of people that are around them, because they just become so afraid of losing someone that they care about. And so either they say, "Oh, I'm not going to care about anybody, because if I do, they just die." And it sounds extreme, but people think that sometimes when they're going through it. And sometimes they can overcome that. It doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. They're just going through mourning in a different way, um, or in a way that's right for them. But a narcissist is someone that, it continues on, and it's more than just the mourning, right? So we're going to talk about all of that in the podcast, and I hope that you will listen in. So it's at imperfectheroespodcast.com. You can get it on any format, any podcast format that you're listening to. I think we're on pretty much all of them, unless it's a really, really small one, but we're on pretty much all of them. I'll have the link to the podcast in the comments below. And so you'll have the link to the podcast. You'll have the link from the Saboteur to Strategist workshop just for the month of February. And I will also put in the link to my coaching program that is there. So you can always sign up for one on one. And, I give everybody one free 50-minute session with just me, and we can talk about some of your concerns, some of your hopes and desires, and we can come up with a plan that will be right for just you and your family, and we can help you out a little bit. So I'll put the calendar link there too. If you're interested in that, just book a session, and a 50-minute session, and I would be thrilled to be there to help you, to get to know you, to get to know your family, and we're there. So until next week, I guess, let's find joy in parenting. Bye, guys.